I'm here with Kathy Kleiman, co-chair of the Rights Protection Mechanism Policy Development Process Working Group. Kathy, what are rights protection mechanisms and why are they important?
David, thanks for having us. Thanks for this interview. And I wanted to mention the other two co-chairs of the working group are Phil Corwin and J. Scott Evans. Rights protection mechanisms are the mechanisms created within ICANN to protect intellectual property rights, particularly trademark rights. And since the beginning of ICANN, we've known that trademark rights were implicated in the domain name system, and we've come up with ways to try to balance trademark rights and the rights of others for access to domain names, and tried to balance so that when there were disputes, there were ways to reconcile them.
The uniform dispute resolution process has never been substantially reviewed before. Can you explain the motivation for doing so now?
The uniform dispute resolution policy and process are the oldest consensus policies within ICANN, and they haven't been reviewed because we haven't really had a chance to sit down and take a big look at them. And we've been busy creating new rights protection mechanisms that we'll talk about in a second. So we didn't have a chance to roll back to the very beginning to take a look. And that's part of the purpose of this working group, to look at both new and older rights protection mechanisms and really get a big picture.
Could you talk us through the areas that the working group has already identified for review and the phased approach which you're going to take?
The working group has identified both new and old rights protection mechanisms. And we're actually going to start with the newer ones, the rights protection mechanisms that were created for the new generic top-level domains, for the rollout that we started doing in 2012, and that is still in progress today as we roll out new top-level domains. And because there were a number of new top-level domains coming out all at the same time, we created a new set of protections for trademarks. This includes the Trademark Clearinghouse. This includes the trademark notice and the sunrise period, all of which are terms that will be explained if people are interested in coming into the working group. We'll explain, we'll share. And it also includes the URS, the Uniform Rapid Suspension. And so we're going to be looking at those rights protection mechanisms first, the ones created for new GTLDs. And then we're going to go back in phase 2 and look at kind of the grandfather of them all, the foundation, which is the Uniform Dispute Resolution Policy.
And there are a number of other community initiatives ongoing at the moment, particularly the new GTLD subsequent procedures, PDP, which are closely related to this area of work. How is that being accommodated within the working group's activities?
That's a very good question. So in order to roll out new top-level domains, there's a number of reviews that have to take place. We have to review and rethink areas of the new GTLD applicant guidebook. And only one of those areas is rights protection mechanisms. There are all sorts of other areas from the application process to the review process to the contention process that are being reviewed by a different working group, the subsequent procedures working group. So of course we have to coordinate, and we're going to be holding regular meetings of the co-chairs of the subsequent procedures working group, along with the co-chairs of the rights protection mechanisms working group, to coordinate and make sure that we're working with issues along a time frame that's useful for the work that they're doing. We've also appointed liaisons, people who, God bless them, are members of both of the working groups and spending the time in both of them, and who will help us coordinate and share information across both working groups. And so together we can kind of finish up hopefully in around the same time frame so that we can open up new rounds of new GTLDs.
So the Helsinki meeting is taking place under the new policy forum format. What opportunities for community involvement will this new format present?
Another good question, because this is a new type of meeting with actually much more time to participate in the policymaking process. The new rights protection mechanism working group is going to have 2 meetings. One is an outreach meeting on Monday afternoon that will really present kind of an overview of what we're working on, dive into some of the details that we're working on in phase 1, the new GTLD review, and really talk about the kinds of questions people have, the kinds of issues and concerns that they have, as well as the kind of data they'd like to see gathered so that they and we as a community are better informed as we go into these evaluations of the new GTLD rights protection mechanisms. Then we have another meeting on Thursday morning, which will be the working group itself. And here we're going to be continuing the calls that we have every week, and we're going to be diving into a discussion of the trademark, PDDRP, Post-Delegation Dispute Resolution Policy, which is a discussion actually of questioning the delegation of a new top-level domain. And so, although it's never been used, we're reviewing that policy. We'll be meeting with providers of the dispute resolution process if questions and contentions and complaints come up. And so we've had these two meetings, one kind of a broad cross-community meeting on Monday afternoon, and one to allow everyone to deep dive with us into a traditional working group meeting.
Great. And so what are your hopes and expectations for the meetings this week?
I hope that the meetings this week will create a broader interest and outreach across the community for more participation in the working group. We have a number of members, but we could always use more, and particularly if people who have some experience in some of the rights protection mechanisms that we're working with, issues, concerns, ideas, but also those who don't and who want to come with us down the path of looking at rights protection mechanisms. So we're hoping that the tapes are viewed by others, maybe who couldn't participate in the meeting, and also that if people are interested, they'll come in either as observers or as members, and if they have questions, that they'll reach out to the co-chairs and ask us questions so that we can help facilitate their increased participation.
Great, and it sounds like it's going to be a busy week, so thank you very much for sparing us time today.
Thank you for your questions, David.